I was interested in this idea, this capricious shifting between material and temporal geographies while traversing alternate modes of translation, transliteration, and transduction, all crossings in essence. And transduction is a term that's borrowed from Michael Silverstein in linguistics, and it's an idea of a kind of translation plus. That was fascinating to me because at the same time, I was starting to take an interest in Nabati poetry's kind of metamorphic and versatile nature as a stylized form of the vernacular, as my colleagues have described, and it's kind of quote-unquote protean power to reinvent itself. That spirit of reinvention was really interesting to me as a poet, and the ways in which it deviated from classical Arabic poetry. And it is this transferred sense of the word that seems to later have been applied to what we now call Nabati poetry. And it is this transferred sense that I found interesting as I was writing this collection. And so Al-Majaz works with the idea that Nabati poetry, being a traditional form, does not make it necessarily anti-modern. And as Hoor was saying, it's still very much alive and circulating and the most dominant form of art in our region. And so I find myself contemplating this paradox that this phenomenon suggests, that the form owes its resilience and its versatility and its beauty to its presumptive imperfections. I found myself questioning what kind of relationship Nabati poetry could have with the contemporary modernist poetry of the Emirates, or perhaps this new, confused, polylingual genre that I had begun to explore. Was it possible to invent a poetics that viewed these traditional forms as symbiotic or even as part of, in a complex and rich field with generative potential? And also, what are the problematics of my skepticism of this rejection was something that was big for me. And so all of these questions came to mind and I wanted Al-Majaz to function as a kind of experimental counterpoint to the modernists' rejection, but also perhaps be situated within its literary history. And how does this form create a kind of syntactical fuzziness and a tonal confusion that denaturalizes the reading experience? This is a stylistic intervention that I termed anti-nostalgia, which is a kind of thenness informed by a nowness, but which challenges dichotomous energies. In future writings and in future research, I wonder whether there could exist a broader commentary about the heteroglossic realities that many Emiratis and many Khalijis, in fact, experience, and to explore the unique way in which they interact with language and to acknowledge it as a legitimate extension of our vernacular beyond a mere product of neoliberal fantasies for cosmopolitanism in the region. And of course, I have many other resolved questions, but I hope we can talk about that in the Q&A and as we continue to discuss. But before I do that, I would like to bring some language into the room. So this poem is called The Glottal Stop, or The Guttural is the Last Radical, Investigating the Dissemination of Conscientious Lostness Through Contemplated Utterances of Linguistic Rebellion. Below the biggest road, the two diphthongs dip when once possessed a lisp, traffic song and more, that murky melody and machine, car, 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 the clouds, afloat almost atop this concrete canopy or cavern, tile-candied an ocean flattened to dimensions of wall, and waves of blue and bluer, below the ground above, as seas are meant to be. And I think about these poets, they were never lost. And while a syllable always begins with a consonant, a glottal stop takes the place of an initial consonant, preceded by a guttural, long syllable, the initial consonant of which a guttural is, or a sonorant. Vowel is a homoorganic form, is an elative. Gutturals and its behavior. Gutturals do not only inhibit, guttural closes a non-final syllable. The guttural is followed by us, and these boats and these non-inhabitants save the compartmentalized confetti. The guttural is the last radical.